Hello, my friends. This is Andy, Hedieh, and Leandra on the Andy Falco Show. We have a lot of stuff to discuss, so we're probably going to get to it pretty quickly.
Great.
But Leandra, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good. We got a lot of shenanigans going on around here, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Hey, you want to talk really quick, or can we talk a little bit about what's happening with the computers with the kids, or no?
Yeah. I mean, I just think I should just specify that when I come on the show, I am a school board member, but I'm also a mom, and so usually when I'm talking as a mom. But also I'm a board member. So I got a text Thursday night. I was notified about it, and I really didn't believe it at first. That they said that the teachers during the day, it was a couple parents, and they said the teachers during the day had logged onto their kids' personal computers and had started to remove tabs from their computer. And I said, "Are you sure?" Because I just didn't believe it, and then they said, and apparently the teacher in every class was getting on there, and he was saying, "Hey, such and such, get off that thing. Hey, such and such, get off this. Remove this. Remove this." He was like citing what tabs were open, along with the Zoom with the school district.
So just to interject, on Wednesday, my kids asked me, both my 14-year-old and 13-year-old, says, "Hey, Dad, do you think it's okay that the teachers can see what's on our computers?" And I just merely said to them, I said, "Well, that's the district's property. The computers we were using were the district's property,
right?
And like the police department, we didn't have any, privacy with any equipment, like the phones that they gave us to use during our patrol." So I said, just understand they can look at everything that's on that computer.
Right.
So that was my answer to them. But you found out possibly that it was happening even to the personal computers?
Yeah, it was on the personal. It was, I actually personally confirmed it that it was the personal computers. As long as you were logged in, to the Zoom, and we're using the Google or the Chrome browser. Yeah. Because I will say that one of my kids did a test, and he took a test on his actual computer, and he opened up his Chromebook because the rumors were flying like mad that this was happening. So he opened up his Chromebook, which was still logged in, and he put on YouTube and he put on Minecraft. And so he took his test on the normal computer, and then he watched as the tabs started to disappear. So
I'm more concerned because many of the things that I do, I'm an expert witness sometimes in criminal court cases, and what we're viewing is attorney product, right? Yeah. It's just between me and the attorney what we're talking about. The last thing I want is a liberal teacher looking at something that I'm doing some work on and getting that out into public, and so it's more concerning to me.
Yeah, and too, that was another issue. Is a lot of people were complaining. The parents were complaining because, what was brought up was, well, do the students have, because they're students, people just don't think they have any privacy. And so I kind of think that wasn't really cool for the kids,
right.
Because our students should have privacy. And there was one, actually, a friend of mine, her daughter was writing a paper for another class, and it was in a tab, so she's been typing last night, gets on to do the class, and the tab was removed because I guess it was just kind of a free for all. If you're in the class, you can't have any open tabs. So, you use your work. And then too, I let one of my kids use my iPad, and usually with all the questions that kind of come, people call, text about the CDPH and, CIF rules and whatnot. My emails are open, my tabs are open. And so I'm sitting here going, I just let one of my kids use my computer, and anybody see.
So Hedieh, with your FBI background, being an attorney, and we talked about expectation of privacy and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on this thing?
I don't think the student. So when you're using the school email, I think that if I'm not mistaken, the disclosures that they provide the students with is they shouldn't have expectation of privacy on those either. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to understand, which I hope maybe some IT people can get on and figure out for us, is if you don't have a remote desktop function, how are they able to close tabs on your personal computer? Because they should be able to do that on their Chromebooks because they have a remote desktop login. I actually set it up for my daughter on hers, but how are they doing it on a personal computer unless you set it up?
Well, apparently it's when you log in with the district to get onto the Zoom. and you have to use that Chrome browser is how it is. So it's when you log in to be able to communicate with the teacher over Zoom. That's when, if you do it on any device, technically, I guess they're saying that's when they can view all of the stuff. And like I said, I wasn't briefed on it. I didn't know about it. So I was just asked about it, and and then I was kind of given the information about it, and then they were, shutting the program down by that time. So, but I was concerned for, I'm not so much concerned for my kids. Like, I don't think that they're looking at anything wrong or whatnot, but I do know that, like, one of my kids will watch Netflix sometimes on his lunch break, and then it'll hit pause.
Oh yeah.
I gotta admit, I'd actually prefer to keep my students' computer to be monitored during school, because I see her chatting on Instagram while she's in school. So I'm just kind of like, what is going on in that classroom?
I just don't want them looking at my stuff.
Yeah, we don't want them looking at our stuff.
I don't want them looking at my stuff, and that's the thing, especially with a lot of the kind of the hate that I get from teachers and union people in the district. I mean, can you imagine?
They turn anything into something bad.
Yeah.
So this is something we're going to have to look more into and see what's happening. And this is really what's great about me getting to know you. And I had a disclaimer. I don't know if you had a chance to see my show the other day about the school board meeting that I went to, but I wanted to make it very clear that you and I didn't know each other until you really made the decision to run for school board. And along with where I was going at the time, I have discovered that I've done my community a disservice by not being more involved in what's happening in our city and what's happening in our schools.
Right.
And so, I cannot believe what is happening in our schools, being aware of this kind of stuff that's going on. I may not have ever even paid attention before. And now we have this ethnic studies, which is really what our show's about today. This ethnic studies, as a parent, and even as a kid, I remember just thinking, that the teachers are just going to teach us the right thing. Right? Everybody has our best interest in mind, that we should trust teachers, like we should trust everybody, an adult to teach us the right thing. When I look into this curriculum even more, and Hedieh and I were doing a lot of research just coming on, we were cramming, because this really is new to us, and really we're not involved. But now we are, and now I'm even more concerned now than when I first learned about it in just the last couple of minutes.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of us, we have thousands of Facebook followers between us, and I think a lot of them are residents of California. So I think it's very important. We provide contact information in both Andy's page and my page on how people can email the California Board of Education and object to the curriculum. And we could run through some of the criteria that are required in order to implement this curriculum, and people should be aware of when it goes into implementation stage. What is it going to look like? And make sure we're involved, because this is just reverse racism against Indigenous Americans or white people, however you want to classify.
Yes. I am reading that like the school boards can vote on it, kind of just determine things like that. But I was reading, I posted an article about it yesterday, and I started reading a little bit further into it. And even like the New York Times has basically come out and said that ethnic studies is like, the name is hidden as to actually what it is. And I think too, as we have kind of been on this journey, like, with more interest in the schools, we'll find out that the Black curriculum, or the Black Lives Matter curriculum, that's not exactly what that's not what it is either. It's like they put this name, and it sounds good and it sounds great, but then when you actually look into it, it's anything but. We can't even in our public schools pray, but suddenly we're supposed to be able to chant and sing songs and affirmations and appeal. I was reading this, and this is what it said. It said that what they want our students to do, they want them to sing community songs and chants and affirmations and appeal to Aztec's gods. And students are asking in these prayers and chants to be warriors for social justice.
Well, let me just, here's the guy, I guess he's one of the primary editors or creators of this thing. His name is, it's a difficult name because I think it's some type of Native American, Tolteca Cotton. And he's a teacher, governing council, vice chair, and advisory led social justice Humanities Academy at Caesar's Chavez Learning Academies, California Teachers Association, Stanford Instructional Leadership Corps, coordinator of statewide curricular advocacy, ethnic studies, New Coalition, and co-editor of Rethinking Ethnic Studies, Rethinking Schools, summer 2018. Now, I want to introduce this guy to you because in a graphic that I created here, this is one of the things that he says about, well, at least which is in the curriculum. And sorry, hold on. Here it is. 1 second. And that is that the United States was founded on a Eurocentric, white supremacist, racist, anti-black, anti-indigenous, capitalist, classist, patriarchal, sexist, and misogynistic, patriarchal, homophobic, and anthropocentric paradigm brought from Europe. Wow, none of that sounds good. None of that sounds good. And so, there's a way of teaching, these things in our classroom without saying that your parents
and your ancestors,
but everybody that's even alive today, right? Everybody that's alive today, because they're white, they are all these things. They're homophobic because they're white supremacists. We are talking today about you being a white supremacist.
Yes.
And you, and you had a very difficult upbringing being what you told me as a woman of color.
Yes. Being an Iranian in the United States during the hostage crisis was horrible.
Somehow you made it. You're an attorney. You work for the FBI.
I made it.
Wow. You weren't held back by the white man?
No, he tried, but my brother beat him up.
See, this is the thing. It's like, where is hey, we had these things. I mean, we know there was slavery. There's something about slavery you could talk. I knew about slavery. Roots was on television when I was a kid. I watched the entire series and I learned about, the abolition of slavery, the difficulty that the slaves went through. And we can teach that. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. But teaching that's U.S. history.
Right.
What we need to be teaching is how it is that we now are America. We are one of the most blended countries in the entire world. And again, I say this all the time and I get arguments all the time. We are the least racist country in the world. And I've been all over the world. And so have you.
Yes.
And I can truly say we are one of the least racist countries in the world. And then you and I being police officers, you being with the FBI, hearing that police are systemically racist is totally a myth. But that's not what this is going to teach. It's going to teach, I think, myths and lies about where we are today. Sorry, go on a rant, but that whole thing just makes me crazy because it's the complete opposite of what is the truth. Right. As far as I'm hearing. Did you want to say something on that?
Well, I mean, just the what Leandra read about being a social justice warrior. The only warrior I want my daughter being is for Jesus Christ. I don't want her to be a social justice warrior. And I don't want the school teaching her to be a social justice warrior. In whatever they feel that they define what a social justice warrior means. What social justice? According to who? According to who's social justice? So suddenly the ethnic minorities of the United States constitute what social justice, they get to define what social justice means. You know what I mean? And so as a Middle Eastern American, and I'm not even Arab, so do the Arabs and the Persians get to say, wait a minute, I don't want the Asians and the blacks deciding this. I want the Middle Eastern version to be the version of ethnic studies and social justice that's demanded. I mean, it's just, where does it end?
Right.
And what's one last thing, Leandra, before you jump in? I know you're probably on pins and needles, but this was on the Kramer High School website. This is one of the pictures that was on there. This is to protect and serve. It was one of us, you and I, one of the three of us, in uniform, and behind us is a bunch of tombstones with the faces of essentially black people, men, who in the course of committing a crime were unfortunately shot by cops. I mean, that's really the true narrative, right? Whether they were, whether they should have been shot or not, that's the next thing. But it's not like what they want you to believe is that cops went out there and hunted these men down and shot them just because they were black. That's not what happened. And then we have this other one here where it shows them protesting Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter protesters, on the ground kneeling, begging for their lives as police are spraying them with some type of chemical agent. And this was on one of our high school websites. So with all of that, Leandra, what do you think? What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, Kramer Middle School, you'd have to log in as, if all the students were able to see this. And it was for Black History Month. And I wish that we were celebrating all of the Black Americans who did great things for our country, and that we were leaving all of this, social justice issues out. And it is a problem, and it is something, that I campaigned against, because our community, the reason that it was pulled down from Kramer was because there was a community outcry. You had police officers who saw this, you had all these parents who saw this and said this is wrong. And so, they contacted the district, and it kind of seems like lately there's been a lot of community outcry about these topics. And, we've lost a year. Our kids have lost a year. Let's not beat around the bush.
Mm-hmm.
They've lost a year. And so while we should be, celebrating Black history, we should be celebrating, is it Women's History Month? We should be celebrating all of the people who've made our country great. We have to remember, too, that bringing in all of this extra stuff, this ethnic studies and all of this stuff that they want to bring in, we're in last place in our country as far as our, math scores and our reading and all this stuff goes. I feel like we should be really focusing on getting our kids back and getting our kids to the top so that they can be competitive, when it comes time to graduate high school and college and look for jobs. And so I don't know why we have taken just this road that we're on, where we're just deviating from the core curriculums and getting our kids successful, and why we're going this route. It's just bizarre. I mean, and to come back to, as you were talking about, in this ethnic studies, I kind of wrote a few notes down, and it says in this ethnic studies that they want to pass next week, it says Christians are a source of evil to be resisted and overthrown. While Christians are guilty of theocide against indigenous tribes, the killing of their deities, and replace them with the Christian faith. Then they established a regime of coloniality, dehumanization, and genocide. And so the author of ethnic studies wants to engineer a counter genocide against white people.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just like crazy. And we're supposed to bring this into our schools and teach this to our kids. I mean, I've been doing a lot of talking with college students, and, I've been on a couple Zooms with some, it's just really great college students from all, from California, from different parts of our country. And they're telling me that they don't want this. I was talking to a Black college student, and he said, I've had to defend my white friends because they're being attacked in the classrooms. And then when I defend them, and I'm asked point blank by these teachers, well, don't you believe in Black Lives Matter? They're doing so much for good. And he says, well, what have they done? And they said, all the money they've raised. He goes, where has the money gone? And then so the teacher kind of starts to think, oh, this guy's not on board with this liberal idea. And so he said that all the money has gone to the Democratic Party. We're not going to see any of this money that's been raised by Black Lives Matter. And then they said, well, what religion are you? And the guy says Christian. And so then now this person's in the same group as his white friends and is getting the same type of persecution from those teachers. And I just think that this is just wrong. And how do you stop it? Because you're sitting there, and I'm hearing stories from students in our district too. There's teachers who are talking about defunding the police in the classroom. There's teachers who are pushing this curriculum, and they're talking about, they're saying it. And a few students will speak out, but everybody's so worried about getting a failing grade, because college is on the line. And that's where these kids are stuck. Because if you really want to go to college and it's so competitive to get in, that's why this is in our schools, is because the students aren't, we teach at home to respect authority, to respect your teachers. And so you just keep pushing this stuff in. And the kids at a young age, well, what do I believe? This is not what I believe, but I can't say anything against it. I have to write this paper. I have to do this, this classwork to get the grade. And then now you have these high school students that if they're speaking out, they are getting failing grades. It's just crazy. And I don't know how we got there. In my high school, I was a minority, and I was hit a lot for being white, So, it just kind of seems like it's not anymore, just talking to a lot of people, doesn't seem like it's necessarily a race thing. I don't know if it's just a human thing. I don't know. Yep. I don't know if it's just,
Well, there's I see all these huge differences that are being brought out by the Republican Party. I don't know. I'll say the Conservative Party. We have Republicans that we don't care for either, but this is the conservatives. Is that and I put a post up the other day. Hey, welcome those that are Black or Mexican or Asian. Welcome to the Republican Party, where we just call you American.
Right.
If you go to the liberal side of things, you are Black, you are transgender, you are all these different things. And then also, just so you know, we're making it so you can vote because we think you're too stupid to go get a driver's license. I mean, at what point do they finally realize, hey, I think those people are calling us stupid. I think those people are calling us a bunch of names. I mean, if I go to this other party, they think we're smart. They want us to succeed. They teach us about capitalism. They know we can get a driver's license. And this other party, they want to make math have, 5 different answers to an equation. I mean, because they think we're too stupid to do math. I mean, when you really begin to look at it, and then you look at Minneapolis and Portland, who started this, I don't know if they started it, but they really took hold of this defunding and dismantling law enforcement. Yeah. And they realized, wait a second, everybody's dying in the city. And now you see they're trying to hire a bunch of people. Like, it's like, hey, did you see what's happening in Portland and Minneapolis, where they got rid of their cops? They're now they're trying to bring back their cops. Where you begin to see that, you would just think there'd be some people to begin to see, okay, we experimented this over the summer during COVID, not so good. These things didn't work. Do you have any thoughts on my rant?
No, your rant was great. I just have a separate thought, but I think we shouldn't underestimate our opponent in the sense that this is not by accident. It's not a chaotic happenstance. It is a carefully orchestrated plan by leftist, socialist ideologues that are trying to change the foundation of this country. And as an expert in Islamic extremism, I saw this happening in countries all over the world. I've written dozens of reports about it happening in Pakistan and in Indonesia and in Uzbekistan and the former Soviet states, where Islamic extremists were doing what we called like a cultural genocide or a social deconstruction of the indigenous, tolerant cultural norms in order to supplant it with extremism. And so that's exactly what we're seeing happening in the United States, where the group is trying to destroy the social structures or our ideological structures to supplant an alternative ideology. And it's up to us as the community members to fight against it. So one of the things about this Board of Education policy is it requires the input of stakeholders, which means civil society institutions, students, and parents, again, and community members. So again, if we don't get involved and we stay silent, we cede the ground to these groups.
Yeah.
Leandra?
I almost think now, after I've been talking to a lot of these kids, I almost think that what's happening is they're overplaying their hand because the kids are ticked off. The kids are ticked. Like I had one, and it's a hard thing. I'll just say, I know a student whose one teacher was talking about toxic masculinity, in their class, and they're in junior high, and they come home and they go, what the heck is toxic masculinity? I go, what are we talking about? Like, what's the context? Like, what happened? And they tell it to me. It was the most bizarre thing ever that would be brought up about a video game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's just bizarre. And so I think like these students are seeing it. And when I'm talking to these students too, I'm just not talking to conservatives. I'm talking to, I'm talking to liberal students. I'm talking to students who are like right there in the middle. So, and they're really tired of it. They're really tired of having, like they said, we're not learning the subjects anymore. We're just basically getting this shoved down our throat. And so I kind of am wondering if they're starting to overplay their hand a little bit. I mean, because when you read this ethnic studies thing, what parents sit here and look at this and say, oh, this sounds like
great.
This sounds legit. And so when
you'd be surprised.
Bizarre. Yeah. And I mean,
you'd be surprised how many people are, the country's divided, right? We know there's about 70 to 80 million people who think like us, but, the rest of the population could be very well attracted to a social justice platform. I know I've lost friends since this whole thing has started. over
Right.
this issue. We lose family members, we lose friends because either we agree not to talk about it or it leads to a fight.
You got San Francisco, right? And you would think that at some point, the people that live in San Francisco, I used to love going to San Francisco, a beautiful place it used to be. Now it has fecal matter. I call it contamination. Fecal matter, urine everywhere. The homeless people sleeping in front of businesses' doors, and they have to wake them up before they can open business, and they got to wash it down with a hose and wash down the fecal matter. And now you have this crime wave that began in 2008. The reason that's important, because I'll tell you in 1 second, began in 2008. It's 85% of the aggravated assaults are blacks against Asians, which they're completely ignoring. Some of the blacks get arrested for it and they get released. The DA won't prosecute them because they are, a class that they don't want to prosecute. Right. But is that not, I mean, we don't see that even in the black community. We see the black on black crime, right, in Chicago, but we don't see another, ethnic group attacking another ethnic group at a rate of 85% of all the aggravated assaults are on one group. Then what they choose to do is ignore it, or when they talk about it, they say, well, it's Donald Trump's fault.
Aye.
The problem is it started in 2008.
Right.
Not 2016.
And why does the color of the perpetrator affect whether you prosecute it?
I know.
Yeah.
But I was wondering about that point. But see, what you were talking about, and you were talking about, well, you think that people would just start to get a clue. Well, this has been going on since 2008.
Yeah.
But yet they still allow it. They still vote in the same Democrats. Nancy Pelosi never gets voted out. None of those people get voted out. It continues year after year, vote cycle after vote cycle. And I just don't know. You may have a point on that, or you may want to speak about it, but I want to get to this point very quickly. And that is to ask you, does it help to have us come to these school board meetings? Does it help? Does it make an impact? Or do they just go, yeah, that's very nice. Good. Thanks for coming, parent. And then they go on and do their own thing. Does it help to have us come there and speak as we did?
Absolutely. Because like I've said before, I'm not representing, I was voted in by the stakeholders. And so I represent you. And so I can say as much. I mean, I was yelling, to the rooftops what people want and what people are telling me they want. But, when you come and you say exactly what you want and how you feel, that's a whole nother, it's amazing. I'm so glad that the parents have stepped up in the last, 6-8 months the way that they have, because it's, it just confirms what we're saying. It just confirms when we come in and we say, well, we like this because of X, Y, and Z. And then you have this wave comes in and says, this is exactly what we want. Yeah, it absolutely it gives credibility to what we're saying, as board members. And, we all have different opinions, but I can say that, I think everyone on our board wants what's best for the kids. And I don't
want you to push it. I'm so sorry. There's a little bit of a delay. I don't know if you can speak to this question. You can just say no comment if you want to. That's okay. But do you think that the school board, all school boards across the United States, but especially ours, that just kind of got used to nobody really complaining?
Nobody's showing up.
And they just kind of go, we're just going to prove everything, or everything's okay, and whatever it is we want, because parents don't seem to care because nobody's coming to the school board meetings. Do you think there was a little bit of just complacency going on because nobody was really paying attention?
I think so. I think there's been a lot that's happened in the last 10 years. I think with CTA getting more and more involved in, the curriculum and trying to have a say in everything, and the union involvement. I think we saw a change. We saw a change in how kids were being taught in the classrooms. There was just, there was starting to just be some dramatic change. And so I think it really woke people up. And I think in the last 4 or 5 years, people found their voice. And we realized too, a lot of people, when politics happened, you were always taught, the government knows what's best for you. These are elected leaders. And then I think now people have woken up that says, no, I don't think that. I don't think that's exactly it. And because, look at how many people actually get voted in, and then they go somewhere and they do the absolute opposite. And the second they're in their position, they're no longer looking out for what we want back here in California, but they're doing what is politically good for them in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. This little Orange County is a little island, I think. And I say this all the time. I think we have one of the better school districts, and right now with you on it, we have one of the better school boards. With Sean also, I'm going to give him some props because I was hard on him on another show. But I think overall we have one of the better, where it's just like, hey, we just want to teach math, we just want to teach English, we just want to teach kids how to read. And I do know some of the teachers, and they said, I don't know what all this other stuff they're trying to get us, or what's coming down from Sacramento is, but we don't want that. And so I feel pretty strongly that they just want to stick to teaching the kids the things that schools are meant to.
But when these things get shoved down from the state level, there's our opportunity to stop it, because once it passes, then every district has a responsibility to implement it, and we'll have another opportunity to affect how it comes down. Mm-hmm. But I mean, once it gets to the point of implementation at the district level, our voices won't matter. It's so critical that people write in and email and complain and contact their local assemblymen and representatives, because this is the time. I was telling Andy I was in DC for over 2 decades, and whenever we wanted policy implemented, we were told by the congressional staff, that if the office gets more than 3 calls on a subject, that subject issue has to be flagged for the congressperson. So it takes 3 calls. That's how little they hear from people in the district, and how much impact we can have when we call our local representatives. Right. So it's so important to let people know how we feel about these issues, and also press. They're very responsive to press, whether it's elected officials or even at the FBI. When a news article came out criticizing our program, it had a tremendous effect on how the program was implemented. A single news article.
And I wasn't going to bring up this, but I wasn't going to bring it up, but I think too, we also need to make sure that with social media, that we are following the right people who are giving the actual accurate truth. There's been some groups, there was the group, it kind of died off, the PYL USD Against Terrorism, where I was a terrorist. Now there's a group, it's been up for a while. It's not getting a huge following. It's the same characters, same admins, same tired spiels, same lies, but, they have a Facebook group called No Hate PYL. They're using the district logo, which I think the people who are administrators on these pages should probably know that that's against the rules. But, they're also putting out things like, I mentioned my the Global Health 360, which is against human trafficking. And one of the pages on their Facebook says, we need to find out about this because this is a QAnon thing. And once it gets pushed in, I'm sitting here going, and I don't even follow these pages. Like, people are watching, they kind of take screenshots and they send it over. And I'm sitting there because, if it's a QAnon page, then Katrina Foley is a QAnon herself, because Costa Mesa just voted for this to be in their community against human trafficking. They just adopted, this group or whatnot. So it's just crazy. So I think too, when you're getting your information, like, go to the source. Like, go to a school board member, go straight into the district. Don't don't go to these social media people who are just trying to, the other day someone said that I don't even have any kids at all. This is PYL. I have no kids. Okay, perfect.
I've seen your kids.
I don't know who I've been supporting for 18 years, but hey, there's just a lot of things. And so I think with the social media, we can't let our community be, divided, because we have people who are actually, they're pushing for this ethnic studies. They've been pushing for Black Lives Matter. They're pushing for all this stuff. And so they keep posting. And a lot of it is just lies and, misconceptions. And so I think what's really important in the next coming, months and years is that we really make sure, as a community, we need to make sure that we're going to the source and we're getting the actual facts and the truth.
Yeah. That's what I tell you. Oh, I'm sorry.
You can tell about the South Park.
I was going to say the reason we were laughing is that we watched South Park last night. The movie.
The vaccination special.
The vaccination special. If you can't take cuss words, you can't watch it. But
it's so funny because it's actually quite fair, and then it makes fun of both sides.
Yep.
And it's just
brings up QAnon.
It brings on QAnon. And it's like Dixie has a comment about that. It's like we're just so everything that we want to support or advocate for is now suddenly QAnon.
Yeah.
We're suddenly bat, you know what, crazy, where we're just making a conspiracy out of everything. Like kids are not actually being trafficked, or they turn it into a hyperbolic, oh yeah, so what is it, Obama trafficking them in a van? Like just making fun of everything that we are trying to bring up as a social cause. It's just, it's so divisive. It's so divisive that it's unfortunate that we've gotten to this place as a society.
Yeah.
And Global Health 360 was founded by a Democrat. And so you have Republicans, you have Democrats, you have Libertarians, you have all these people on there because the issues are so important. But then you have these groups that just decide, oh, we're going to say that this is QAnon and this is, you know, they're trying to bring something in. And I mean, and it was really funny too, because when they started to say it was, oh, she's a QAnon follower, she's a Q nut, all this stuff, I was like, what the heck? So I actually had to, because I had to like go back and say, where are people thinking this? And so I think I watched Out of Shadows during COVID, like when it was the first start of it, you're looking for something to watch and it was popping up everywhere. I think I watched it. I might have posted or I might have talked with somebody about it. And so suddenly if you've watched Out of Shadows, you are a QAnon person. But then, so being me, it's not QAnon for people who are accusing me of being a QAnon and a Q nut. It's not QAnon. There's Q and then there's the Anons. So that just
all right.
I've researched. That's what it is. So
You even know that.
I know nothing about it.
I ain't Q.
Yeah.
And I don't really think I'm a non, because if you've ever seen my tech skills, they ain't there.
I've only learned that some people think Q is President Trump. That's nothing I've heard. Let's get back on track on something that's real. The one thing that we have found in our research, just as kind of finish this up, I wanted to keep this not the hour and a half show that I did the other day. And that is we seem to have found that there's a lineage as to where this ethnic studies comes from. There could be some Black Panther roots in this whole thing. And then what was the third? The third.
Che Guevara. It's not Cesar Chavez, but it's Che Guevara. I'm sorry, I'm not good at pronouncing it.
Yeah, but then
other socialist Marxist movements.
Right.
And
a lot of this is coming from the socialists. I mean, I'm sorry, go on.
Sorry, the Third World Liberation Front.
The Third World Liberation Front, yeah. And these are all very radical groups. And so that's what they want to bring into our public schools.
Well, and that was one thing that the New York Times said. I wrote this down because I was like, well, the New York Times just said this on Tuesday. They said the state of California is advancing an ideological group who think and know that ethnic studies is not so much an academic discipline, but, oh gosh, I wrote it so sloppy. They're inviting an arm for radical ideologues.
Exactly.
And it says it's because of how it's labeled and framed, its actual nature and content stays hidden, which I think I said before. But when the New York Times is kind of questioning stuff, you should maybe take a closer look at this.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, I mean, it's just trying to turn our kids into radical activists.
Yes.
To bring about radical change. And it's just perplexing to me but again, if you don't get informed and you don't read the primary source material and you don't try to find out about what this stuff is, it seems innocuous. Ethnic studies, why shouldn't my kids learn about Asian history in America? Great, sounds fine, go ahead. It's very nefarious the way it's presented.
Yep.
And the ethnic studies actually was years ago. It was ethnic studies years ago.
Yes, I took it in UCLA.
Now it's evolved into this social justice agenda. And, a lot of people will say who are, who believe differently from me, that I'm just pushing this, conservative agenda or whatnot. But I'm telling people, read it. It's all in the New York Times. It's all over the place right now. You could really read into it and delve into this, and it'll show that this is not a study on ethnic studies.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm copying and pasting in the description. I put an email for the Board of Education, I think it is. I'm not sure.
California Department of Education.
Department of California. That's who they want you to email to let them know how you feel about this.
Yes.
So make sure an email. It's in the description. So the email address in there. I'm right now putting a link to the curriculum.
And it has the email listed on that page.
Yes, it does. And I will put an article that I think just kind of sums it up. If you don't want to read all those documents. Years ago, it's the same one that you put on your personal page, I think, Leandra. So, so all links are in there. Some of them are not there. You may not see them. So if you don't see it on whatever platform you're watching, because we're broadcasting on 5 different Facebook pages, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you don't see it, let us know. There was somebody from Twitter that said something. Who was it? They said, sorry, looking for it here really quick. I think I already lost it. Nutcases.
I don't know if that's us.
Yeah, I don't know if it's us or not. So Kobo, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you're saying that we're nutcases, or the people that wrote the curriculum are nutcases. Either way, we might agree with you.
Yes, and again, it's so important to teach our children respect for other ethnicities.
Yeah.
Again, as a person of an ethnicity in this country, I would love for kids to have an understanding of their experience. But that's not what this is. That's not what this ethnic studies curriculum is about. It's about creating Marxist protesters. And that's what's insidious. And it's again, pitting the white students against the ethnic communities. And the last thing we want to do is create division where there was none. And actually, Karen said that, like, why are they creating division amongst our kids when there isn't any? And I mean, for the most part, I know our children today are so woke that, I mean, like they're mentioning a race in our house is prohibited. So it's like, we're not allowed to use the C word, the A word, the R word, the N word. I mean, like any kind of descriptors, even according to weight, are forbidden. So you know what I mean? I think that they are. This isn't necessarily what they need, is to find reasons to hate their fellow. I know this is not what they need, to find a reason to hate their fellow students. It's very upsetting.
And why they need to be taught to do that as well. Like, because if you look, I mean, like I've said before, I think I said on the show last summer, I looked outside and all 3 of the boys had all their friends over. Everybody's in the pool, and there's just every race under the sun is out there.
Right.
And they don't see it. They just say, this is my friend, this is this. And so it just bewilders me as to why we want to push this in. And, see, like, I grew up in kind of a multicultural home. Nobody ever believes me when I say that, but I just happen to look like my mother. But, my dad's whole side of the family is Hispanic. So I grew up, we go to my dad's side of the family for holidays and people are speaking Spanish. And my cousins are Hispanic. One of my other cousins, there's some adopted relatives I have, one of them is half Black. I mean, so it's just kind of like a big melting pot in my family. Obviously, my mom's side is Dutch, that's, but it's just amazing to me. And maybe that's why I'm just kind of like perplexed, because when you grow up kind of in like a melting pot a bit, you just kind of like, it's just kind of what you're used to.
I like it when people call me a white supremacist, racist, Nazi, and I'm Hispanic, married to a Persian who used to be Muslim. I am the worst white supremacist on the planet. I
shouldn't give you a membership card.
No, they're going to take my membership card away.
I mean, and my only like regret is that I didn't when I was younger, I really, I was an athlete, and so I really wasn't into the whole kitchen thing. So that's my regret, is I didn't learn the language better. I mean, they helped me a little bit when I was taking Spanish in high school, but like I should be able to make like some really good rice and really good enchiladas, and because I love to cook now, and like that's always my regret, that I didn't like really embrace like learning how to make all the food and all that stuff. I was like, I should have really, I should have embraced that, but I wasn't really, I was just an athlete. So in those times, growing up in the Dutch community too, like people, girls my age now, the mom, we're making oliebollen for the holidays. And I'm like, okay, you do that. Can I have some? So yeah.
Who's Lopez?
I don't know.
That's Dora's dad. And I'm like his second daughter. So.
Oh, sweet.
We call him Lopez.
So
and Dixie doesn't want to be weird. I don't know what that's about.
I don't know. I think somebody said, I don't know. I was going to try to make something up, but I don't want to. So, Hedieh, to wrap this up, what's your last words?
Get involved, read, educate yourself, contact the Board of Education. It's really, this is our opportunity. The vote happens next week, and this is our opportunity to flood the office with emails objecting to the way that this is crafted, and hope that it has an effect.
Leandra?
When you write the letters too, one last thing, I would say if we want to do ethnic studies, and let's do it in an appropriate way that doesn't attack certain religions, that doesn't attack certain races. Like if we're going to do ethnic studies, we need to do it the right way, and we need to learn about all of the religions. Let's learn about all of the races, and let's learn to have a respect for each other and a deeper understanding of each other. Let's not have this ethnic studies where it's just a constant attack thing. I think we should whatever they wanted to implement 20 years ago with ethnic studies, let's go that route. Let's not go this route, because I think this is just a route. This is just a destruction of America, and it's destruction of our kids,
which is their purpose.
Yes.
I have two things. One thing, now you just mentioned, it just dawned on me that, remember in Orange before COVID, if you can remember that far back, in Orange, we have the Strawberry Festival, right? Not Strawberry Festival. What is it called? It's called something else, where they have, there's sections of the street. It's all closed off. There's sections that are Greek, Mexican, Japanese food.
Fair.
Yeah. It's like a food fair, but it's all separated, and you can go there in German food. And everybody has a blast. Everybody's drinking beer, but they're having blasts. And it's a great, just go there and talk to everybody and learn about the cultures and how great everybody is and the different kinds of foods. I mean, that is really what it's like. I mean, it should be like, this is a celebration of all the different ethnic races that we have and types of food, and just enjoy each other, not to this other crap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, with Asian studies, learning about the Japanese internment camps in this country, I think it's important for our kids to know that we did that at one point in our history, and that they understand that we don't want that to happen again. It's just, as Leandra pointed out again, is that doesn't mean we have to pit Native white Americans against Asians. Why do I have to pay for the sins of generations when I wasn't even in this country? You know what I mean? Or your family wasn't in this country. Right. What does the child today have to do with the sins or the oppression of generations past? It's important to learn from it, but we shouldn't be pitting the kids against each other.
And I think if we really look at our community, I think we have a really spectacular community. And I think if we just uplift each other, like everybody in the community of all races, I think we can I really think we can beat this, because just talking to these kids, these college kids the other night, it was so refreshing. I got off this Zoom, and I was just amazed, and I was so excited because, there's just so much doom and gloom, it seems, that comes in from Sacramento. And it's like, oh my gosh, what are they doing to our kids? And so if the kids don't want it, and if they're embracing each other, I think we should just stay on the course that we're teaching our kids, that we don't hate each other, that we love each other no matter the race. I mean, I never really had to teach my kids that, because it's just something that we did as a family.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it wasn't a question. And I think that there's a lot of families out there that are like that. And so I just feel like as a community, as long as we continue to embrace each other, and I think we can beat this no matter what. And I also think too that as a community, we can beat this as well, and beat this coming into our schools.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah. And the last thing that I want to say is just that everybody needs to be involved, whether you have kids or not, and pay attention to what's going on in your school board, because it impacts the entire community.
Absolutely.
Right. So let's get involved.
Even if you have to rent kids out like I do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, Leandra, thanks for joining us. This was important to have you on, I think, to get your perspective from the school board perspective. I mean, at least from your side of the school board perspective. And stay strong. I know that you're strong, but never give in.
No, never. Absolutely.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Thank
you. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Spread the word, share this out, comment, do everything you can to let people see this broadcast. It's important that they by Tuesday, send an email telling them how much you do not want this curriculum to come into our schools. All right, my friends, we'll talk to you later. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.